Hello, and welcome to the Beyond B2B Marketing podcast. I'm Lee Odden, CEO of Top Rank Marketing, and today our guest is someone that I first met 9 years ago when she was then at Salesforce and had me on her podcast, or Cloudcast as it was named. Now, fast forward to today, and not only is she in an amazing leadership role at Microsoft Advertising, she's dominating LinkedIn with her videos offering a humorous look at B2B marketing and career advice and so much more. You could say she's like a corporate Natalie of B2B marketing, only better. And of course, I'm talking about Heike Young, head of content, social, and integrated marketing at Microsoft.
Thank you so much, Lee. Oh, that was so nice. Thank you for the wonderful intro and love the comparison to corporate Natalie. She's been an inspiration of mine since back in the day. I remember the first time a friend of mine sent me one of her videos and I was just like, what? You can have fun. You can make jokes about the workplace like this. This is crazy. And I try to bring that spirit to what I do for sure.
Well, you do it so well.
Thank you.
Um,
Oh, it's so nice.
so so good to see you again. And so you were at Salesforce for 11 years or so, and Microsoft for just over a year. Tell us about that journey and the news about where you're headed next.
Yes, it's actually super exciting because this is the first podcast that I've appeared on since I made the decision to turn the page to a new chapter in my professional career. So after, many years as head of content at Salesforce, some time as head of content at Microsoft, and before that, I was a book editor at For Dummies and worked at a marketing agency for a while. I am going to take a break from corporate life. It's been 15 years of hustling and grinding and circling back and KPIs and status update meetings and deliverables. And I have just decided to just take a step back from that, press pause on that for a little while, and just do a couple different things. First of all, the most important thing is hanging out more with my family. I think even the most flexible corporate job still has a pretty rigid structure, right? There's still a beginning of the day and you answer these emails. And if you go on PTO, you're going to come back to 700 or 800 emails in your inbox or whatever it might be. And I do have young kids, and just through a lot of personal reflection, decided I was at a point where I wanted to have more flexibility to get them after school, hang out with them in the mornings and whatever it is,
Yeah.
just to spend more time with those little ones at that time that you don't get back. And I'm blessed to be in a position where I'm able to do that. And then the second thing is, like you talked about at the beginning, and when you were introducing me, I've spent a lot of time the past couple of years focusing on content creation on LinkedIn and some on TikTok, and exploring some other channels and formats as well. And it has become, I've always done content. I've always done content in some way, shape, or form as a B2B marketer, but doing it in as part of the creator economy has just lit up something in my spirit where I'm like, wow, I really enjoy doing this. I'd love to spend more time doing this. And if I have a little bit more time with my family, and then I kind of combine what I have been learning and seeing as a creator, perhaps with some public speaking, some other consulting gigs, that feels like a really good mix of work to me. And so, yeah, that's kind of the trifecta of what I'm going to be doing, content creation for brands, some consulting, some public speaking, while also, trying not to step on Legos in my house.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just the Lego thing. I was like, it brought back memories of those midnight trips to the bathroom
Yep,
and a little
I know.
surprise.
There's a lot of parents for whom the Legos on the foot is very triggering, because it is like that pain that shoots through your entire calf when you step on it.
Well, I don't think there's any segue from Legos and integrated marketing, but I'm going to go ahead and go there. So that's an expression, obviously, that's been around for a long time, and the discipline has clearly evolved, especially as buyers in the B2B space have diversified where they get their information, right? And one of the stats that we've been really leaning on to help articulate that change is McKinsey's finding that buyers now engage 10 distinct channels during their journey. So it just seems like an integrated approach to marketing in light of that is more important than ever. And I'm just kind of curious if that's what you're seeing too.
I think in this role in particular that I held most recently at Microsoft, where I was head of content, social, and integrated marketing, it was really my first opportunity as a content leader to oversee not just the content channels, but the broader integrated marketing strategy and the campaigns, which are, like you said, they incorporate many channels and tactics to get a singular message to market. I think this would be a great option for content marketers who are trying to figure out their path. My company may not have a VP of marketing role. What am I going to do next? I don't want to be a director of content forever. I think that folks with a content strategy skill set are in a great position to be able to harness that and do so through integrated marketing. And I see a lot more companies posting integrated marketing leadership roles nowadays. And what that means to me personally, and everybody might have a slightly different take on it, what it means to me is that we don't have a separate content plan for PMM and a content plan for the blog and a content plan for social and a content plan for campaigns. I know I've definitely been part of companies, teams, departments where that was honestly what was being asked. Like the PMMs had their whole bill of materials for a launch. The content and blog team was running with their blog strategy over here. And all of these things were not integrated. And so to me, what this means is all of the instruments are they're singing from the same songbook, they're in the same symphony, and you're able to have one broader message, perhaps depending on your goals, your audiences. Maybe you have a few different audiences and one key message for each, whatever that might be. And then you're really coming up with a unified content strategy that looks at all of your different channels and platforms and tactics and keeps all of those things in mind, keeping them all moving in the same direction rather than different channel specific strategies and tactics all over the place. It makes everything much more unified. It makes everything much more targeted and much more effective, which is ultimately what we're all trying to do nowadays as marketers.
Exactly. It's especially with, the competition for attention and the changes in how people are discovering, they're not just going to Google, right? And hitting an ad and, I don't know, subscribing, downloading or whatever. It's, you've got things like Reddit and Substack and ChatGPT and Perplexity and another AI powered search like, Google's search experience obviously is different now than it was a year or two ago. And continuity of experience, continuity of marketing experience across channels has a lot of value. There's a lot of argument now, a growing argument for the value of brand on revenue outcomes, right? And it just seems like an integrated approach makes the most sense when we're trying to create that continuity of story and message and narrative and that sort of thing wherever the buyer's looking, right? Um,
Yes, and whether it's organic and paid, we see increasingly in teams that I've been a part of, and wonder if folks listening, maybe you've had a similar experience. Like the stuff that looks and feels organic is often going to be your best performing paid content. And we need to stop
yeah.
thinking about paid as a separate channel to create content for, and rather just look holistically at our best performing content, voices. Do we have some great employee generated content? Do we have some great customer hero content? Like, can we empower those pieces of content to be the star in our paid campaigns because we see that they're performing well on organic? And so I think just giving license to the content strategists on the team to be able to look at everything organic, paid, all these channels working holistically and choose and optimize what levers are you going to pull to make everything perform really well. That is so much more valuable and such a better use of your content team than saying, hey, why don't you guys go create some blog posts over there?
Yeah, it's like, a lot more about orchestration, right? Than it is about a singular tactic that might have worked in the past and then relying only on that. Um, you know, Another kind of dimension to this of what's happening in the market right now, especially in B2B marketing, is that a lot of brands are challenged, especially by dropping organic traffic, organic search traffic because of zero click search. And, as I mentioned, changes in the information sources that they rely on, that they follow, that they trust. And certainly, the search engines like Google and Bing are still, playing a role, but so do these other alternative sort of or different channels, like I mentioned before, ChatGPT, Reddit, Substack, dark social, that sort of thing. So here's my question about, and with that as context, how can B2B marketers make sure that their brands stay relevant, wherever buyers are looking? I mean, is it just as simple as saying, well, you've got to integrate your strategy, or is there something more to it than that?
It is such a rich topic to think about in terms of why is B2B marketing falling so flat? Because I think that's the root of your question. There's this sea of sameness. There's this generic content, this bland, I call it content voice, but it's when you're using a million pieces of, jargon, buzzwords. You're using 10 or 15 different words to talk about digital transformation. And this is what our tool does. And it's the all in one AI powered solution. But really, everybody comes to your website or blog is just getting there and thinking, what the heck does this thing do? What is this platform? Why do I need it? And everyone's just confused. And they hop on the phone with the sales rep. And maybe finally, at some point, 25 minutes into that 30-minute call, the rep is like, okay, this is what it actually does. Like, how can
Get to
we
that right
get to
away.
that faster? Yes. And give people the permission. It's like, oh, yeah, we're actually going to tell you what this thing really does. And then you can make the decision for yourself whether or not you need it. And my friend Task Ober has some great content. She posts on LinkedIn about landing pages and giving people that information to not make them convert, but to absorb the information and actually understand. The goal is them understanding what you do and then deciding, is this going to be worthwhile or not? It's not that you convert everybody. It's so unrealistic to think, you convert everybody that's coming to your site. And so I think that B2B marketers need to get out of this content voice land that they've been living in for years, where they think simply using these fancy words will be enough to fool customers or persuade customers that these solutions and platforms are the right fit. And a lot of times it's not their fault, by the way. It's not the content marketer's fault. It's not the social team's fault. It's not the PMM's fault. It's somebody often in a position of leadership who is saying, "Oh, but I didn't see the word transformation in there. Could you make sure we include that?" And so they're pushing on these buttons. They're trying to make this content voice creep in even when it doesn't need to be. And so, again, not the marketer's fault. It's often the leadership that's pushing the content in this direction. And so what I think, I really kind of see three areas where marketers can really lean in, get out of content voice land, and make a push into better, more resonant content. And for me, those three areas are really number one, making customers the hero of your content. So a lot of companies talk about doing customer storytelling well. They don't all do it well. I think Salesforce is a company that actually uses customer storytelling and customer content in an amazing way. You go to a Salesforce event, you don't see the pictures of their executives plastered on the billboards as you drive into town. You see the faces of their customers, right? And that's woven into
Trailblazers,
everything
right?
that they do. They're trailblazers, exactly. So the voice of your customer, then I think it's the voice of your employees. I think employee generated content, empowering your employees to actually be, they're your sales team, they're your marketers. If you are in B2B, you need to be using your employees as creators. They will break through on LinkedIn and on organic channels in a way that your branded content never could. It's too generic. Nobody wants to read that. Nobody wants to read another post from, your company name admin on the blog. People want to hear from a real person, right? And so actually fostering a culture where employees are creators, that would be my second thing. And then my final thing would be partnering with creators and influencers in a more meaningful way. I see a lot of B2B companies that want to dabble in influencer marketing, working with creators, doing these types of partnerships, and it's so transactional. They don't actually understand the deeper power of how to create alongside a creator, somebody that already wields tremendous influence with your target audience, and partner with them to create something memorable and resonant. And spoiler alert, it's probably not like one post. It's probably a series of engagements. It could be in-person events. It could be a whole host of different things that could happen on and off of your website that engage the audience in a different way. So I think with those three things, kind of customer content, employee generated content, real faces and voices, and then real faces and voices through the creators in your industry, I feel like those things would help companies break through the content voice and actually resonate.
That's fantastic. You're describing to a T something that we've referenced as collaborative or participation marketing, which is in its DNA was an extension of influencer activations and always on influencer engagement, and really is centered around this idea of community. Because if you think about how could you activate these three audiences that you're talking about? And I think through strong brand, obviously, and strong brand message and empathy with, what's in it for them and how do we achieve something great together. But, it seems like community and, the collaboration opportunities that come out of people with shared interest and goals is a very powerful force for B2B brands to tap into.
Completely agree, and it's like, it's just real humans. It's just I think we've all talked about AI and the efficiency that we're gaining through AI. That is all wonderful and great. I think your humans are still the ones that are gonna be the breakout voices that are gonna cut through.
You're a walk the talk person as far as I'm concerned when it comes to innovative content, and it's such a fantastic time to be a fountain of ideas, original ideas and creativity, especially when working in B2B, right? Because so many brands are earning the boring to boring
Yes.
definition of that acronym. So AI is great for a lot of things, as you just said, and you know the thing is though that when it comes to things that resonate, things that are distinctive and trustworthy, people are still, I think, pretty much in the driver's seat. So, what's your take a little more specifically on that AI and human content mix when it comes to, a B2B brand that knows that it needs to lead with innovation and creativity?
I see AI as a tool. Not that I think your question is bad. I think it's a good question, but I also think the question is sort of like asking me, Heike, how do you use a computer versus how somebody else uses a computer? It's like so fundamental to how we are going to be gaining efficiencies, scaling our output, all of the things that it's almost, the question's almost a little weird to me in that way because I think every creator is going to have, they're going to have a slightly different response to how they use AI, right? And to how they see somebody may be like, oh, yeah, I use AI in my outlining phase. And that's how I really see the value. Somebody else is like, oh, I don't use it for any writing at all. I use it only to scale my output or whatever it might be. My point is that everybody has to find a way to create that content that they're excited to create, that's fun for them to create. If it's not fun for you to, and I'm not even speaking just about creators and individual personal brands specifically, I'm talking about the content you make in your job as a marketer. If it's not enjoyable and fun for you to make that, I promise it won't be enjoyable or fun for anybody else to read or watch. I promise it's going to be just as boring. And if all you're doing is you're going through the motions, you're using AI as another way to get the sausage made and just get it off the conveyor belt, I don't think that content is going to be enjoyable for your audience. Like that's just my opinion. And so I think everybody has to figure out where AI fits in their process so that the content is still engaging, fun, enjoyable to create as well as consume. And so for me personally, somebody actually, when I was at Content Marketing World recently, somebody said, they were asking me about my videos on LinkedIn, my creation process. And they said, how do you use AI in your process to create your videos for LinkedIn? And I genuinely told the person, I do not use AI in this process. I have worked at a lot of tech companies. I've been in some roles where being AI first was and showing how you were using AI was part of the gig. It is a fun relief for me to have a space in my life where I can create content just for the fun of doing so, and I don't have to show anyone, "Here's how I'm using AI." So, I think for me, this is like a safe with my videos, the content that I create on LinkedIn, it's like a safe space where I can do whatever I want in a creative way that's fulfilling for me. And of course, I use editing tools that use AI to generate the captions. I will use an editing tool that uses AI to take out background noise. Like AI is benefiting that process under the hood for sure. It is not a tool that I rely on at this time for like creating my scripts for videos or anything like that. And I think you can probably tell when you watch it that's like, oh, this joke was like it was put in there by a person. Like it references something where you had to have watched a specific movie or whatever to get this joke.
As a person that is individually very creative, right? I'm kind of curious how that syncs with the approach you might take on a day-to-day basis, especially, as a marketer, working with others, working with peers. How do you impart that creativity, or do you, as you work with peers, in other parts of your organization or other folks, internal stakeholders and internal customers that you have?
Let me answer this from the perspective of somebody who's also a parent. I have a couple kids who are inherently so creative. They wake up in the morning thinking of creative stories to act out with their stuffies. They're thinking of creative ways to use their blocks to build something the world has never seen before that day. And so they wake up feeling creative. They have no reason not to be creative. They've never had somebody telling them that's not a good idea in a brainstorming meeting. And I think a lot of what we do in corporate is we try to homogenize everything, make it all the same. That goes back to content voice and my thinking on that. It's like we try to just take all of the creative elements out, except when we want people to be creative on command. And that's what a brainstorming meeting is. For me personally, my best creative ideas have never come to me in a brainstorming meeting. I've never sat in a 45-minute meeting with my peers being put on the spot to add things to a post-it note where I'm supposed to be coming up with this genius idea for something on the spot. And so I try to give people, if I'm in a position where I'm working with a company, a team of marketers, a team of folks, and we need to come up with some creative solutions, I try to give people a variety of ways to contribute. A brainstorming meeting might not be for everybody. Maybe some folks need a walk and talk meeting where it's just them off camera talking to another person and being able to bounce ideas off one another. Maybe it's asynchronous, adding your ideas to a Notion doc or another template whenever you have the time and space to do so. There could be so many different settings where somebody could be creative. And so I really encourage marketers to stop. Look, if your brainstorming meetings are working for a subset of your team members, that's great. Keep doing them. I encourage marketers, though, to consider deleting their brainstorming meetings if they are willing to do so, and instead give people other ways to kind of be creative and bring their creative ideas to the table.
Yeah, giving people the option to choose how they express something that isn't necessarily, or more likely than not something you just turn on and off, right? It's drawn from contexts, situations, inspiration, moments, right? Not a flick of the switch, as it were. Um, Speaking of creativity, so we were both at, as you mentioned, at Content Marketing World, and I actually gave a presentation there about creativity in B2B marketing, and you gave a deep dive workshop that was called "How to Create an Unignorable Personal Brand on LinkedIn." And you know, I think it's pretty easy to arrive at the conclusion that you're probably the best person to give a workshop on that
Oh,
topic.
that's just way too nice.
Um, and there are many people that understand the importance of sharing their insights via video on LinkedIn, but they have trouble executing, right? And I'm curious, I'm sure you've been asked this before. What advice do you have for people that want to overcome that challenge of creating and producing video on LinkedIn, whether they're corporate, whether they're an employee, so an aspiring influencer, what have you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people tell me that they hate filming videos of themselves, and I can totally relate to that. I think video is a really powerful medium. It conveys such a depth of presence and who you are and your voice in the world that I think text only doesn't convey. And so if somebody is coming to me and they have goals of creating a more resonant personal brand on LinkedIn, I often do tell them to explore video, even if they find that the reach numbers aren't as great for some reason, even if they find that they're not sure if the ROI is really there, because I just know that video is so powerful when added to other types of content in your personal brand mix. I have people all the time that will tell me, "Oh my gosh, this video you posted on whatever topic, like my favorite video. I sent it to, 5 people on my team or whatever. And I'm like, I've never even seen you like one of my videos before. Like so many people are LinkedIn lurkers. And so the analytics you see of a video's performance is just like the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so many saves and sends and I know LinkedIn is adding a bit more analytics on this, but there's so much that you don't know about how your videos may be impacting people. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about posting, or if you have posted videos, maybe they didn't perform as well as you wanted. Just remember all of the unseen benefits of videos on LinkedIn. But for me personally, if I'm thinking about how to help you create videos of yourself that you don't hate, that you don't press delete on right after, I would say probably 4 things. First of all, give yourself permission to do multiple cuts. A lot of people think they need to sit down at their phone, press record, do one big, beautiful cut for the next 60 seconds and have no ums or ahs or awkward pauses, and the video needs to be perfect. That's simply not the case with vertical video, social media, the ways that people are used to consuming video content nowadays. You can record each line separately if you want, stitch it all together into a great video. That is totally fine. And it's way easier to think in your head one really solid line at a time than 60 minutes or 60 seconds, excuse me, worth of content. 60 minutes would be even harder. So don't attempt that.
Yeah.
And the next thing that I would say is to really practice more than you think you need to. Practice honestly does make perfect. I know it's so annoying. We hear that cliche since we're kids, practice makes perfect, but it's genuinely so true. The first few months that I did these videos, that I was creating content, on LinkedIn, it took me so long to get a take that I liked. It was hard for me to nail everything, the facial expression, the vocal intonation, the hand gestures. If I got one thing right, something else suffered. And it was hard for me to choreograph everything together. And I've been doing it for a couple years. Now it's so fast. I can I'll open up my phone, have an idea in mind, and like having practiced really has made me so much more efficient and faster at doing it. The last 2 things I'd say are a little bit more tactical. And so the first one, in my list of 4 here, the first one's to just use TikTok as a filming tool if you want a little bit of extra filtering, beautification, as I like to call it. You don't have to post your video on TikTok. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you film it in TikTok, you save it to your phone. The built-in filters, and that's why everybody looks great on TikTok. It has like a built-in filter every single person, unless they specifically turn it off, is using when they post a TikTok. And it just adds a little smoothness. And like, I'm trying to give you tips for videos you won't hate. That is like one of my tips. And then my very last tip would be to face a window, ideally in the morning. You're going to have such better luck with your lighting. It's going to look so much nicer if you just look directly into a window. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like the way I look. And it's like, yeah, you're in a dark corner. The shadows are all over your face. Like, go look in a window. It's going to make a world of difference.
That's a great way to put it. That last part about lighting is absolutely a thing. And, it's funny. I'm in a home office where I have almost a floor to ceiling window on this side. So I've got 3 big old ring lights to create a light
Yeah,
source. So,
balance it
so it
out on the
evens out.
other
You can't even
side.
tell, right? But
Hmm.
you're right. And I love that idea though, that like using a platform that's got native filters built into it, just as a test, you don't have to publish there. And give yourself some grace and a chance to be successful, right? Like I think you were publishing. I was looking, of course, I'm looking at your videos. You were in my presentation of content marketing world because I used you as an example.
I know. I wish I had been there. I was already gone I think when you did your presentation, I had to head home to the kids.
And one of my points was is like, she started 6 years ago. And so there's a lot of videos, it's like you've got to have some faith in the fact and make a commitment. I think it's important. Anything like that, where you're putting yourself out personally out there, um, give yourself some grace, give yourself a chance to be successful, and just know that there's tons and tons of amazing success stories where people were at it for years, and then all of a sudden they saw this hockey stick type of evolution in some way. So
Thank you. It's the same advice I would give to in-house content marketers working on this stuff. Like you had some big idea for an amazing series, a podcast, a YouTube series, a blog, whatever it might be. A couple a couple pieces of content flopped. Okay, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't shock me at all. I would be shocked if you kept practicing for 5 years and you didn't have any results. Like that would actually surprise me. But no, you have a great idea. Don't abandon it after a few tries. You keep going and you keep practicing.
Exactly. So, speaking of LinkedIn, I noticed your recent post about introverted extroverts, which is something I can completely relate to. I mean, like, I'm comfortable on stage talking to 500 or 1,000 people, but when it comes to those after conference, networking
Yes.
parties, my social batteries like goes down real fast. Anyway, I'm
Would
just
you
kind of curious.
describe yourself as like an introverted extrovert, or do you have a different way you describe yourself?
I'm a introverted no, extroverted introvert, maybe.
Yeah, like more at your core, you're more of an introvert, but like you have that extroverted side, perhaps.
Exactly, exactly. Um, so in either case, I guess what advice would you have for other folks who feel this sort of introversion and extroversion dynamic going on, that want to experience things like events, marketing events or business events or whatever, that, maybe they have a low social battery?
I'm so glad that I branded myself as an introverted extrovert on LinkedIn recently, because now I feel like the next time I go to a marketing conference, more of my people will find me. They're gonna find me and they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, I like having some quiet time too." Or like, "Hey, this expo floor is a little loud. Should we get a small group of us and go walk to a nearby coffee shop instead?" And
Exactly.
maybe we'll all just have a better time together. I think for me, I spent so many years, I've been in these corporate jobs for 15 plus years. And like I said at the top of the call, I'm taking, a little break. But I've been in these jobs for so many years. And for so long, I was just heavily masking at events where I've heavily felt like I needed to put on this gregarious, over the top, extroverted persona because it's what I had to do at a conference. And I don't know if anyone specifically told me that I had to do that or if I just internalized it because I saw everyone else in big groups and shaking hands with every other person. And like that's just like seemed like the norm. And so I thought I needed to do that to fit in. Nowadays, I give myself permission to attend events in a way that's going to be energizing for me. And I encourage people doing that and listening to this to do that as well. And I know you may be listening to this and you're like, well, Heike, it's easy for you to say you were head of content at these big companies. And of course, you can do that because you've been in the game long enough. I'm just starting out. I need to network and I don't know how to balance some of my personal needs with also my needs to put myself out there. And so I would really just think about the ROI that you're looking for from the conference. Like, what is your goal and objective? And create your schedule accordingly. I think a lot of people, myself included, they'll show up at an event and they haven't really thought through, am I networking for career opportunities? Am I trying to find other similar heads of content at other similar companies so we can talk about our shared challenges together over dinner or drinks? Am I looking for those types of people? Am I trying to find agency partners at this event because I really need a new one and I'm looking forward to meeting those types of people? Am I like, what is it am I just here for learning? Am I here purely for learning and development? And that's it. There's so many valid reasons to attend a business event, and it doesn't even have to be a big conference like content marketing world. It could be, a women in tech event in your small town. It could be anything like that. I would think about what your goal is and then direct your energy toward that. And so if other opportunities are being thrown at you, oh, just got an invite for this happy hour, just got an invite for that. Now somebody's pressuring me to go to this session. Just come back to your why. Why am I here? Does this serve me? Because if you're a person like me whose social battery gets drained kind of quickly, you need to prioritize. And that's how you're going to get the most ROI out of that event. And yeah, so for me, I said I was an introverted extrovert in the post. Like, I feel like at my core, I do get energy from being around people. I will get very depressed if I'm by myself for way too long. I'm just going to be, and I'm going to get to a dark place. And I'm like, whoa, I've been alone. I really need some other people to kind of bring me out of this. but I need a lot of I need quite a bit of alone time to recharge and sustain. And so at the end of the day, probably can't always do the happy hour followed by the dinner, followed by the karaoke, and after hours. Like I can't do all of that. I'm gonna have to pick like maybe one thing from that list. And some nights of the conference, if it's like a 3-day conference, I might be able to do zero. And I might just have to go back to my hotel room at 4 p.m. And I might just go out and find like I've been vegan for many, many years. And so anytime I go to a conference, I struggle with like food sometimes. And so sometimes for me, what recharging looks like is like, I ate like almost nothing at the conference all day. I'm gonna take an Uber out to a really fun vegan restaurant that's like 12
Sure.
minutes away. And I'm gonna like sit there by myself and eat dinner. And like that is how I'm gonna recharge.
Well, that's great advice. Well, lots of great advice there, especially that focusing on what's important, especially food, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, prioritization,
100%.
focus. Yeah. But what is it? What are you
Shout out
here
to the
for?
event leaders. Shout out to the event leaders that do provide like good vegan options. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
exactly. So I think it'd be impossible to have a conversation with you without expanding a little more on the growth of your work as a creator. And
No.
you
You're just
know,
like you've been hyping me up. You're just like way too
well,
kind. I appreciate you so
it's
much.
my job to spotlight
Oh,
talent, right? That's kind of a kind of underlying narrative for what we do in terms of how we engage with the marketplace. And we have this mandate to elevate the B2B industry somehow, and one of those pillars is putting a spotlight on talent, and you're that talent right now. So
oh,
um,
thank you.
so and like a lot of work we do in that vein is around spotlighting talent for, on behalf of our clients, right? We're connecting with creators and influencers, and the amount of interest that B2B brands are showing in activating influencers to become part of their marketing conversation has grown dramatically since COVID, especially. And, you know, the thing is, though, the inventory, as it were, and I probably should think of a better word than inventory, but the availability of people with your level of creativity and storytelling skills is too few. Um, so I'm kind of curious from a creator's perspective, what's your take on, I mean, what are you seeing in terms of brands engaging with creators and influencers, um, with kind of a crystal ball, Heike's crystal ball, looking into the new year? Do you think they should, I mean, you've already talked about those 3 groups, right? Activating, employees and customers and influencers, but, like, in terms of this idea of tapping the creator economy, for B2B, what's your advice for B2B brands?
I will start with my like advice to other, aspiring creators, and then I'll get into the advice for brands. So you were saying how there's like low inventory sort of, and like I completely agree with you, by the way. I mean, I think there's tons of amazing talent on LinkedIn. There's so many people creating great content. But then you go to like YouTube, the world's number 2 search engine. People are looking for all kinds of educational content, and there's like almost nothing. So I would just encourage creators, maybe you're already doing some stuff on LinkedIn, like double down on other channels, experiment with what's out there. I would love to do more with YouTube. Spoiler alert, but I haven't had a ton of time yet, maybe in my new chapter, but I did spend this summer cultivating a presence on TikTok. I had done so much on LinkedIn. I was selling brand partnerships on LinkedIn, but I was like, man, I'd love to really learn this TikTok algorithm and see if I can find a way to monetize this as well. I'd also love to tap into the TikTok Creator Fund, which pays you for views on your videos like YouTube does, which LinkedIn doesn't offer. And so, yeah, I spent a couple months in the summer, had like 196 followers on TikTok in mid July when I started. And I think it's like end of September, and I have over 20,000 followers on there now. So I really have tried to learn this platform, and I have like a bunch more ideas for what I want to do with it. So I would say if you're an aspiring B2B creator, yes, double down on LinkedIn and also add other things to your mix. That's my advice. And then for brands trying to tap into this, I think, there's brands that are looking at this in a very transactional way. And those brands are not going to get the most value from this effort. So there's a lot of brands that'll reach out to creators, and they're still learning how this works, but there's basically like, hey, how much for one post? And how much, what can I get for this amount of money? Like, can I get a text post?
Transactional.
Can I get a video? Yeah, it's like so transactional. And I think that brands, if I look into my crystal ball, like you said, brands are going to get the most value out of this if they partner with creators and influencers, people such as myself who have a specific audience that they come to me, they trust my advice, they trust my recommendations on things. Like, I don't want to just give them like a one-off post. Like, I want to really work with a brand in a way that I feel like is going to be meaningful for that audience. They're going to learn something new. One post is probably not enough for them to really learn
Right.
something, right? Like, if you need to be a multi-post and even a multi-platform engagement, perhaps that brand would like to partner with me on, hey, I'd love to like MC next year if I'm looking into 2026, a few things I'd love to see brands asking me to do that literally no one has ever asked me to do. I would love to MC your event. I'd love to come to your event and just like make it more fun, maybe give you some moments that people are like posting about organically on social because it's a really enjoyable, fun, good time. I would love to be talent in your brand's content for you. So let's say you want to start a new YouTube series about your area of B2B marketing, whatever it is, and you need a host for it. I will host it for you. I will bring my audience to it. And I will also I will give you social first editing tips and ideas that will make it feel more like a YouTube series than perhaps what some B2B content teams could do on their own. And like those are just a couple ideas, right? You could also use people like me to speak in your webinars, to guest blog for you on a regular basis. Like there's so many ways that I think that brands just aren't, they're looking at it as like pay for a post. And they're not, back to the very beginning of this podcast, they're not integrating it. This is integrated marketing. You're going to that B2B creator because you like their message, their voice. Maybe for me, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, content voice. Like, hate that. Heike, let's unpack that together. I would love to integrate that message into your work in a more meaningful way than one post on LinkedIn.
Let's keep that crystal ball still fresh here and tap into it one more time. I'm kind of curious if you look ahead, right? If you look ahead based on your 15 plus years of experience in large enterprise brands, tech brands, in senior marketing roles, now you're looking ahead and you're looking at 2026. What are one or two major changes you see happening over the next 12 months?
I think for 2026, I would love to see brands pulling back on stretching themselves so thin. B2B brands have done scope creep to the umpteenth percent. They've gone crazy with, we're going to do every channel, we're going to do every tactic, we're going to peanut butter ourselves so thin across all of these things that we're not going to go deep on any single one. And so when I think about a lot of B2B brands, I'm like, oh yeah, like I thought of one the other day, brand that shall not be named. I noticed that they had an Instagram, a Facebook, a YouTube channel, a LinkedIn, and all of these things were branded. They all had logos that were the right size and aspect ratio for the channel, etc. But there was like basically one piece of content that they had posted, on most of these channels in the past couple months. And so they're not really doing anything very well. They're just doing the bare minimum to keep the channel alive. I would love to see brands flip that and say, we're done. In fact, post something on Instagram. Say, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to invest our resources on LinkedIn. Please follow us there. I would love to see brands abandon tactics that aren't really working or that they're doing too shallowly, if shallowly is a word, I'm not sure it is, and really go, yeah, as it really go like in depth on one thing. And I just think in this era of like 2024, 2025, it was all about doing more with less, right? Cutting
Yeah.
costs.
Yes.
I would impact over activity and all of that stuff. We have to actually do that now.
So let's wrap things up with something that goes, hopefully something beyond B2B, right? And if you could do anything as a career besides marketing or working as a creator, what would it be?
I think for me, and I know I'm gonna have some people that relate to this. If I could make the exact same amount of money doing what I, making the same amount of money that I would in like a head of content role in a big company, um, just to watch and play with my kids, I would 100% do that. And I know I have so many parents that agree. Like, I truly love to hang out with my kids. It is the most fun thing in the entire
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And like my everything. Like I get so much joy from it. I get like I just like I am lit up from the inside after a day of hanging out with my kids. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, if that was like a true full time job, and not in the way
Yeah.
that a lot of stay at home parents actually end up having to do it, which is just that you have to do so much work for absolutely no benefits and no time off. We all know stay at home parents don't get PTO. Stay at home parents
Yeah.
don't get a sick day. If that was like a real job, that would be absolutely dope. I would love to do that.
Amazing. Oh, great answer. Great answer. And lovely. Wonderful. So, Heike, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yes, well, LinkedIn is always the best place, for most people listening to this. If you're a B2B, LinkedIn, Heike Young, Heike is where you can find me. You can find me on TikTok if you want still videos, but that are also about a bunch more random topics than just content and marketing. You can find me on TikTok. And I just started my email newsletter and I'm so excited about it. And
Yay.
it's on Beehive. Yeah. So Beehive, it's like two I's and a V. You guys probably know how to spell it. But if you just search for Heike Young Beehive, you'll find it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and
Yes.
congratulations
Anytime,
on your
Lee.
big change.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think only the best things are going to happen for you. So, thank you very much.
So appreciated. Yeah, been a pleasure. And, knowing you all of these many years across so many different changes and, all of things, all of this is 9 years ago when I was working on that podcast for Salesforce. Wow, is B2B marketing different? And it really is like the people in this community. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's the people in B2B marketing that make it so amazing and wonderful and why I stay doing this year after year.
I want to thank you for tuning in to the Beyond B2B Marketing podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for our next guest. And remember, there's no better time than now to break free of boring B2B.